The universe isolated you for a reason. Don't despair. Loneliness does not come from having no people around you, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to you. Carl Jung. Have you ever felt like the world has quietly stepped back, leaving you in a space of deep solitude? In today's episode on spiritual wisdom, we dive into why the universe may have isolated you, not as punishment, but as preparation for something greater. Carl Jung believed that moments of isolation are often sacred invitations to meet your true self. So, if you're walking this path alone right now, know that it has a purpose. Comment below, "I embrace the silence," if you're ready to discover the hidden wisdom within your solitude. Let's grow through what we go through together. 1. Solitude is not a punishment. It's a sacred invitation. There's a particular ache that comes with being alone. Not a physical pain, but something deeper, more existential. It feels like life has paused you while the rest of the world continues. And in that pause, a silent question arises. Why me? But what if solitude isn't life punishing you, but rather preparing you? According to Carl Jung, isolation isn't something to fear. It's something to revere. It is not abandonment by the universe, but an initiation into deeper consciousness, a sacred turning point meant to awaken the truest parts of your soul. When the universe isolates you, it's often because something inside of you is beginning to shift. The old ways no longer fit. The noise of your surroundings, the roles you used to play, and even the people you once leaned on all begin to dissolve. And in their place, silence, stillness, emptiness. This isn't a mistake. It's an act of spiritual precision. The soul cannot grow in chaos. So the universe strips everything away until only the essence remains. It removes distractions so you can finally hear the voice within. It closes the doors so you are forced to turn inward, not out of cruelty, but because your next chapter requires a version of you that cannot be built in comfort. This sacred solitude reveals the truth. You are not what the world says you are. You are not defined by your job, your relationships, or your past. In this space of detachment, the illusion of identity begins to crumble. The masks fall, the personas fade, and beneath it all, you meet yourself. Truly, deeply, honestly. That meeting is raw. It's uncomfortable. It's vulnerable. But it's necessary. Because only in this space can real transformation occur. Carl Jung believed that healing comes not from running away from pain, but from facing it directly. That's why the universe doesn't whisper, it isolates. In this isolation, spiritual wisdom teaches that we begin to unlearn. We unlearn the habits of pleasing others. We unlearn the need for constant validation. We unlearn the addiction to being seen, liked, praised. And in that unlearning, something beautiful begins to emerge. Authenticity. When no one is watching, you begin to remember who you were before the world told you who to be. You rediscover your quiet passions, your childlike curiosity, your inner peace. This is the true alchemy of solitude. It doesn't just strip away what is false, it strengthens what is real. But the process isn't easy. It's tempting to resist, to reach back for the noise, the familiarity, the comfort. Yet spiritual wisdom reminds us that growth and discomfort walk hand in hand. You cannot expand and stay the same. You cannot awaken and remain asleep to your truth. So the universe allows the loneliness, the silence, the disconnection not to break you, but to build you. You are not being left behind. You are being set apart. Sometimes, the people around you can't walk where you're going. They can't understand your inner shifts. They may even fall away. And that's okay. Isolation isn't always about physical aloneness. It's about energetic separation. Your frequency is changing, and what no longer resonates will naturally fall away. This is not rejection. It's a redirect. The universe is creating space for alignment, for deeper love, for higher purpose, for soul truth. In the eyes of the world, it may look like you're falling apart, but spiritually, you are being reborn. In the eyes of others, you may seem distant, but internally, you're being drawn closer to yourself. This is the hidden grace of solitude. It's not a void. It's a womb, a place of creation, a quiet, sacred chamber where your soul can rest, reflect, and rise. If you're in that space now, between who you were and who you're becoming, hold on. Trust the silence. Honor the stillness. And know that the universe didn't forget you. It chose you. It set you apart so you could become everything you were meant to be, without the noise, the pressure, or the illusion. You are not being punished. You are being prepared for something greater, something truer, something deeply and irrevocably aligned with who you really are. Comment below. I honor this season of solitude. Let this be your affirmation and your beginning. 2. True transformation happens in silence and discomfort. We often assume that growth must feel good. That spiritual evolution should come wrapped in peace, clarity, and joy. But the truth is, transformation is rarely gentle. It doesn't happen in a room full of people or in the warmth of constant affirmation. It begins in the shadows, where distractions fade, masks fall off, and you're left face to face with your raw, unfiltered self. It's in this sacred solitude that something ancient inside of you begins to awaken. The soul doesn't evolve through noise, it deepens in silence. And that silence, while painful, is also holy. Buddha found enlightenment beneath a tree, sitting alone for days in stillness. Jesus withdrew into the desert, away from the world, to hear the voice of God. These weren't passive retreats. They were sacred passages, rituals of isolation through which truth could rise uncontaminated by the world's illusions. Carl Jung understood this too. He taught that individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are, requires separation. A breaking away from external influence so that your inner voice, the authentic self, buried beneath conditioning, can finally speak. When life isolates you, it's not cruelty, it's initiation. The universe is peeling away the layers that no longer belong to you. In the stillness, you may feel forgotten. You may feel abandoned. But in reality, you're being pulled inward into a space where your deepest truths can surface. Solitude becomes a mirror reflecting back everything you've tried to avoid. Old wounds, false identities, suppressed desires. This is why it hurts. Not because you're alone, but because you're finally seeing yourself clearly. There's a man named Alex who experienced this firsthand. He lost his job, his partner, and his sense of purpose all in the same season. At first, he panicked. The silence was unbearable. He tried to distract himself by scrolling through social media, binge-watching shows, filling every moment with noise. But the void only grew louder. Eventually, something shifted. He started walking without his phone. He wrote letters to himself. He stopped seeking answers and simply listened. And in that stillness, he heard a whisper, soft but steady. It told him he was not lost. He was becoming. Carl Jung believe that the psyche has its own intelligence, and it draws us into solitude not to punish us, but to prepare us. The ego hates silence because it can't hide there. It thrives on identity, on roles, on recognition. But the soul is nourished by truth, and truth only blooms in quiet soil. That's why the universe isolates you. It's not exile, it's excavation. You are being stripped down so you can rise up, not as a version of who you think you should be, but as the person you were always meant to become. So if you're in the middle of a season where everything feels like it's falling apart, take a breath. The falling apart is sacred. It's not the end of your story, it's the unraveling of the false self. What remains after the unraveling is real, it's pure, it's you. Solitude, when seen through the lens of spiritual wisdom, is not loneliness, it's clarity, it's initiation, it's the womb of reinvention. Carl Jung reminded us, who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes. And perhaps this is your awakening, not in the way you expected, not with light and celebration, but with silence and surrender. You are not being hidden. You are being held. You are not being punished. You are being prepared. Are you embracing the silence where true transformation begins? If you're ready to grow through stillness and discomfort, comment below. I will meditate and commit to your sacred journey inward. 3. Individuation, discovering the authentic self. Jung taught that the path to individuation, the discovery of your authentic self, rarely happens in community or comfort. It unfolds in solitude, where distractions dissolve and the truth begins to rise to the surface. When the world falls silent and you're left with nothing but your thoughts and emotions, you begin to confront the roles you've played, the expectations you've absorbed, and the false identities you've worn to survive. This peeling away is not destruction, it is revelation. And while it may feel like you are unraveling, what's actually happening is that you are finally being shown what no longer belongs to you. Solitude, though painful at first, is not punishment. It is preparation. It's the sacred ground where spiritual awakening takes root, not in noise, not in chaos, but in stillness. You begin to feel the dissonance between your inner truth and the outer life you've built. What once felt normal suddenly feels unbearable. Shallow conversations drain you. Old goals lose their meaning. And without warning, you find yourself withdrawing, not because you're giving up, but because you're waking up. The soul needs silence to speak. And now, in this silence, it's finally being heard. The discomfort you feel is the friction between the self you've been taught to be and the self you were born to become. Most people never meet their true self because they never dare to leave the version of themselves the world handed them. But Jung believed that this confrontation was not optional, it was essential. As he said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And that privilege demands courage, because facing yourself means facing the parts you've buried, avoided, or feared. Yet it is only by looking inward that you can begin to heal. This process isn't clean or linear. It doesn't look like instant clarity or overnight peace. Sometimes it looks like grief for the person you no longer want to be. Sometimes it feels like losing everything you once thought mattered. But within that loss is something sacred, the space to rebuild not from fear, but from truth. The universe doesn't isolate you to break you. It isolates you to break the illusions. It separates you so that you stop identifying with what's not real. That job, that relationship, That environment, they may have served a chapter of your life, but they are not your identity. In isolation, you begin to remember. And this remembering is the gateway to transformation. Suddenly, your intuition grows louder. Your dreams become clearer. Your boundaries sharpen. You begin to choose differently, not to please others, but to protect your peace. You're no longer interested in proving your worth because you've tasted what it means to simply be. This is the shift Jung pointed to. Individuation isn't about becoming someone new. It's about returning to who you were before the world told you who to be. You're not alone in this. Every spiritual teacher who's ever awakened has walked through this dark night of the soul. Jesus fasted in the desert. The Buddha faced his shadows beneath the Bodhi tree. Their awakenings came not during applause, but in isolation. You too have been called into this sacred space, not as a punishment, but as an invitation. The invitation to strip away what is false, to reclaim what is real, to begin again aligned, awake, and whole. Leave a like and subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you won't miss more powerful insights on your journey of self-discovery. Comment below, "I am ready to become my true self," if you're committed to embracing your authentic path. 4. Shadow work emerges during isolation. In the stillness of isolation, something sacred begins to unfold. The distractions of the outer world fade, and what rises to the surface are not random emotions, but unhealed parts of yourself quietly asking for attention. Fear, sadness, shame, anger. These aren't signs that something is wrong with you. According to Carl Jung, they are the shadow, repressed aspects of your psyche that, when ignored, distort your perception and drain your energy. But when faced with courage, they become the doorway to healing, integration, and true personal power. Spiritual wisdom teaches that solitude is not a punishment, but a mirror. In the absence of noise, you are left with only your thoughts, and in that silence, the truth begins to speak. You start to notice patterns, the way you react to pain, the stories you tell yourself, the wounds you've covered with smiles or silence. These realizations can be painful, even disorienting, but they are necessary. Because healing begins not with pretending everything is okay, but with seeing clearly what is not. And it is in isolation that this clarity is born. This is shadow work in its rawest form, not a ritual, not a technique, but a deep confrontation with what you've suppressed. You may feel broken at first, but in truth, you are being broken open. What hurts is not the shadow itself, but the resistance to feeling what has long been buried. When you stop running from these emotions and allow yourself to feel them fully, they begin to shift. What was once fear becomes wisdom. What was once anger becomes a boundary. What was once sadness becomes compassion. This is the alchemy of spiritual growth, turning pain into power through presence. Jung believed that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will control your life, and you will call it fate. Isolation forces that confrontation. It strips away the illusions you've clung to and invites you to meet your authentic self, not the version shaped by societal expectations, but the soul that existed before the world told you who to be. And in meeting that self, you begin to remember your purpose. You begin to walk differently, speak differently, and move through life with a quiet, grounded confidence that comes from inner alignment. Many of the world's greatest spiritual leaders walked through deep solitude before stepping into their light. They face their shadows not to become perfect, but to become whole. And this, too, is your invitation. What you're feeling now is not weakness. It's the beginning of wisdom. The universe isn't punishing you. It's preparing you. What feels like a breakdown is actually a sacred breakthrough. The silence you sit in now may be the most honest conversation your soul has ever had. And through it, you are not being diminished. You are being rebuilt. If this message has awakened something deep within you, leave a comment of courage. I embrace my shadow to become whole. And if this journey speaks to your soul, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another moment of spiritual wisdom and healing. 5. The purpose of solitude is inner rebuilding, not rejection. Solitude often feels like a door closing. The silence becomes thick, and the absence of people can stir feelings of rejection. But solitude is not life turning away from you. It's life turning you toward yourself. Carl Jung once said, "Loneliness does not come from having no people around you, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to you." This reveals a profound truth. You are not being abandoned. You are being invited inward. When the world grows quiet around you, it is because your soul is being asked to speak louder. In our fast-paced lives, filled with noise and distraction, solitude can seem unnatural, even threatening. But it is precisely in that space, stripped of external validation, that your real transformation begins. Life removes the noise not to punish you, but to prepare you. It knows that clarity is born in quiet, that true strength is forged in stillness. You are not being erased, you are being reassembled. Carl Jung believed that individuation, the process of discovering your true self, requires distance from societal expectations. It's a sacred unraveling, where old identities fall away so your essence can emerge. Solitude is the container for this process. It is where your unhealed emotions rise to the surface, not to torment you, but to be seen, felt, and finally released. What feels like loneliness is often the birthplace of wholeness. Think about the moments in your life when everything paused, the heartbreaks, the job losses, the quiet nights when no one called. Weren't those also the moments when something deep inside began to stir? When you were forced to sit with your truth, and in doing so, discovered strength you didn't know you had. That wasn't just a coincidence. That was life carving you into someone deeper, more aligned with your soul. Take the story of a woman who lost her job after 10 years of non-stop hustle. For months, she sat in silence, wrestling with feelings of failure. But that space gave birth to something unexpected, her long-forgotten passion for helping others. She started sharing her healing journey online, eventually creating a platform that now supports thousands. Her greatest breakdown became her breakthrough, and it started in the quiet. When the universe isolates you, it's not exiling you, it's initiating you. You are being called back to yourself. Solitude is not a void, it's a mirror. It reflects everything you've avoided, but also everything you're becoming. What's being taken away is only making room for what your soul truly needs. And what's uncomfortable now is shaping who you're destined to be. In these moments, you learn to choose healing over distraction, alignment over approval, and clarity over chaos. You stop asking for permission to be who you are. You stop reaching for the noise. You start listening. You start becoming. Carl Jung understood this sacred process. He knew that when the shadow rises, it isn't there to shame you. It's there to reveal what's unhealed, to show you the parts of yourself that are still waiting to be integrated. Solitude brings those parts into the light not to break you, but to make you whole. So when everything around you grows quiet, don't run. Don't rush to fill the space. Because this silence is not the end of your story. It's the space where the next chapter begins. Have you ever embraced solitude as a time for inner rebuilding? If yes, share how it transformed you in the comments. Your story might inspire someone else. If not, comment, "I'm ready to grow," so we can walk this path of healing and strength together. 6. After solitude comes integration. After solitude, you don't just return to life, you return transformed. The silence you sat in wasn't empty. It was sacred. It rewired your soul. It peeled away the noise of the world so that you could finally hear your own truth. And now, that truth must be lived. You're not the same. And because of that, life cannot look the same either. Your relationships begin to shift. What once felt familiar now feels hollow. Surface-level connections, small talk, the roles you used to play, they no longer hold you. You crave something more: presence, depth, vulnerability. Some people will drift away because they only knew how to love the version of you that was still asleep. But don't chase what's fading. You're being aligned with what's real. A spiritual awakening alters the frequency of your being, and those who can no longer feel your energy are not meant to follow you forward. Priorities rearrange themselves without force. You stop performing, stop proving, stop pleasing. What once seemed urgent now feels irrelevant. You begin choosing alignment over achievement, rest over rush, peace over performance. Your attention sharpens. You start to protect your time, your space, your energy, because now you understand how sacred they truly are. This phase is not about learning more. It's about embodying what you already know. You walk differently, speak more consciously, listen more deeply. Everything about you softens and strengthens at the same time. The way you respond, the way you forgive, the way you honor your own boundaries, it all reflects the transformation that solitude gave birth to. This is not ego. This is rootedness. And rooted people move with grace that doesn't need to announce itself. But integration is not always peaceful. It's lonely. It's confusing. You may find yourself in rooms that once felt like home, now feeling like a stranger. People may question you, misunderstand you, even mock your shift. Let them. You are not shrinking anymore to be accepted by those who refuse to grow. Your discomfort is not a sign of failure. It is the evidence of growth. You're being stretched, not broken. Life is testing your alignment, asking, will you live what you've learned or retreat into who you were? Solitude wasn't exile, it was initiation. And now, this is the rite of passage. This is where your awakening takes form. Not in what you say, but in how you live. Not in how much you know, but in how deeply you've changed. Integration is the quiet daily decision to keep choosing your truth, even when it costs you comfort. You are not going back. You are not meant to. The path ahead is unfamiliar because it was carved for the version of you that's only now beginning to emerge. This is your rebirth, subtle, sacred, and entirely your own. If you felt your soul shifting through solitude and now sense a new version of yourself emerging, type, "I am ready to live my truth," in the comments. Let this be your declaration of integration, alignment, and authenticity. 7. Solitude leads to inner power and service. Solitude is not a punishment. It's a sacred rite of passage, a divine pause where the universe calls you inward, away from the noise, so you can rediscover your own voice. Most people fear being alone because they mistake it for rejection. But spiritual wisdom teaches us that the most powerful transformations do not occur in the presence of others. They unfold in the silence of solitude. It is in this quiet, often uncomfortable space that you begin to remember who you truly are beneath all the masks, labels, and expectations. Those who surrender to solitude do not come out the same. They emerge with a grounded peace that doesn't rely on the opinions of others. They no longer seek validation in likes, attention, or approval because they've tapped into something far deeper than their own soul. Carl Jung called this process of individuation the journey of becoming whole. And for this journey to begin, something must be stripped away. Distraction, noise, superficial connection. What remains is the raw self. Vulnerable, yes, but also powerful beyond measure. In this sacred silence, you meet your fears and your longings. You confront your wounds. You see the parts of yourself you once avoided. And yet, the deeper you go, the more you find that none of these shadows define you. Instead, they become gateways to your inner strength. You begin to realize that peace doesn't come from what surrounds you. It flows from what anchors you. And nothing anchors a soul more deeply than solitude embraced with trust. And something beautiful happens along the way. Your presence begins to carry weight, not the kind that seeks attention, but the kind that commands stillness. People feel safer around you. They sense the clarity in your words, the depth in your gaze, the calm in your energy. Without even trying, you become a vessel of healing, because the energy that once shattered you has now been alchemized into wisdom. The silence that once haunted you has become your sanctuary, and the isolation that once felt like exile has become the birthplace of your purpose. True power is quiet. It doesn't need a stage. It simply is. Those who have walked through the valley of loneliness with open hearts carry this power naturally. They don't impose, they inspire. They don't instruct, they embody. Through their stillness, they hold space for others to soften, to reflect, to feel. This is the sacred service born from solitude, not by force, but by authenticity. And this is what spiritual wisdom looks like in its most radiant form. When you are isolated by the universe, it is not to break you, it is to awaken you. You're not being hidden, you're being refined. The solitude is sculpting you into someone the world needs, but isn't quite ready for. And when you return, you'll return not as who you were, but as who you were always meant to be. Not louder, not more decorated, but more true, more whole, more you. To affirm your inner strength and purpose, declare your alignment with this path. Comment below. I rise through solitude to honor your journey and inspire others to discover the quiet power within themselves. So if you've been feeling isolated, remember this isn't punishment, it's preparation. The universe may be pulling you away from the noise so you can finally hear your soul. In solitude, the truth begins to rise, and your transformation takes root. If this message touched your heart, let it guide your next steps. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom. And be sure to turn on the notification bell so you never miss the powerful insights we have coming your way. You're not alone. you're being aligned. Keep walking your path with courage. Signs that your shadow no longer dominates your energy. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Carl Jung. Every step you take toward awareness is a step away from the shadow that once ruled your energy. In today's video, we're diving into the powerful signs that your shadow no longer dominates your energy, a clear mark of spiritual growth, self-mastery, and emotional freedom. These shifts aren't just abstract ideas. They are practical transformations you can recognize and apply daily to create a more peaceful, authentic life. As you listen, ask yourself, which signs are already unfolding in your journey? Comment below with your thoughts or share which shadow pattern you've overcome. And if this resonates, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom, where transformation begins from within. 1. True transformation is quiet and internal. True transformation doesn't come with fanfare or external validation. It doesn't demand attention or parade itself as a grand rebirth. Instead, it unfolds in silence, in the quiet shift within, where the need to become someone new dissolves, and you begin to remember who you truly are beneath all the masks. It's not about adding more layers to your identity, but shedding the ones that were never yours to carry. The lighter you feel, the closer you are to truth, not because you've gained anything, but because you finally let go. When your shadow no longer dominates your energy, you don't react from old wounds. You respond from self-awareness. The triggers that used to hijack your emotions no longer hold power. You begin to notice the space between what happens and how you respond. And in that space is your freedom. This is the language of healing. Your higher self steps forward not through loud declarations, but through the calm that replaces emotional chaos. The silence becomes your strength, and inner peace becomes your default. You no longer chase approval like oxygen. The hunger for validation fades because you no longer question your worth. You're not addicted to being seen. You're anchored in being real. Compliments are welcomed, but not necessary. Criticism no longer derails your self-esteem. You've stopped outsourcing your identity and started living from your own spiritual center. There is no longer a void to fill, only presence to embody. Judgment melts into compassion. You see through people instead of reacting to them. You no longer take everything personally because your pain no longer seeks reflection in others. You understand that projection is a mirror, and what once triggered you now teaches you. You see the scared child behind the bully, the broken heart beneath the anger, the insecurity wrapped in pride. And instead of reacting, you soften. This is the quiet power of an awakened soul. The fear of your own darkness fades. You no longer run from discomfort because you no longer fear being imperfect. You can sit with your jealousy, your shame, your sadness, knowing these emotions do not define you. You hold space for them without becoming them. You understand that the shadow isn't something to eliminate, but to integrate, to bring back home. And in doing so, you reclaim the fragmented pieces of your wholeness. You stop performing. You stop pretending. You stop chasing light because you realize you've been it all along. Life feels lighter, not because everything is perfect, but because you're no longer carrying the weight of who you thought you had to be. This is not about spiritual bypassing. It's about spiritual embodiment. The energy you carry becomes still and clean, like a calm lake. You're not pushing. You're not grasping. You're allowing. And that's how you know. The shadow no longer controls the room. It sits beside you, no longer screaming, no longer hiding. It's no longer your master. It has become your teacher. And in that sacred reconciliation, your true transformation begins. Are you ready to embrace the quiet power of true transformation? If this message speaks to your soul, comment below. I return to my true self to affirm your journey inward. 2. You detach from your past and no longer identify with your story. You no longer carry the weight of your past as your identity. The stories that once shaped your pain no longer define who you are. You can look back without flinching, without needing to justify your choices or explain your wounds. Your history becomes a silent witness to your growth, not a chain around your neck. There is no urgency to be understood by others because you finally understand yourself. That's when you know your shadow no longer holds the pen. You feel your emotions, but they no longer consume you. Sadness no longer sinks you. Anger doesn't erupt without reason. You can sit with discomfort and breathe through it. You become the observer, not the victim, not the reactor. A triggering situation that once spiraled into chaos now meets a quiet strength in you. You take a pause, you stay present, and you respond with wisdom rather than from your wounds. That subtle shift, that's real power reclaiming itself. You stop needing validation. You don't need applause for your peace or approval for your path. The old craving for recognition fades. You don't need to post your growth, argue your decisions, or prove your progress. You simply live it. You become grounded in who you are, even when no one's watching. That silent confidence speaks louder than any defense. You are no longer proving your worth. You are embodying it. You also stop reenacting your pain through other people. You no longer make others pay for what someone else did to you. You catch yourself before your inner child reacts, and instead of lashing out, you meet yourself with compassion. You don't deny the wound, but you don't let it lead. And when something hurts, you ask what it's teaching you, not who to blame. That's when healing becomes a habit, not a performance. Power is redefined. It's not how loudly you speak, how many follow you, or how hard you fight. It's how still you can stay in the face of noise. It's how little you now need to win an argument to feel whole. It's how freely you can walk away without feeling abandoned. True power is presence. It's sovereignty over your energy, and that is the deepest sign that your shadow no longer dominates you. This transformation isn't loud. There's no grand announcement. It happens quietly in the pauses you take, in the emotions you hold without acting on, in the peace that no longer needs to be proven. When you no longer chase validation, no longer cling to old identities, and no longer let pain make your choices, that's when you know your shadow has been seen, heard, and finally integrated. You are no longer at war within. You are home. If you're ready to release the weight of your past and stand fully in your worth, comment below. I am free from my story. Let this be your declaration of inner liberation. 3. Emotional independence becomes your new strength. Emotional independence becomes your quiet power, the kind that doesn't need to prove itself. When your shadow no longer dominates your energy, you stop reacting from wounds that once dictated your choices. You no longer seek love safety, or identity from anyone outside of yourself. The people in your life stop being lifelines or saviors, and instead become companions, equal, grounded, and real. You give not because you're afraid to lose, but because you have something genuine to offer. You don't give to get. You give from overflow, not emptiness. Relationships that once drained you begin to fall away, not with bitterness, but with quiet acceptance. There's no need to chase, explain, or defend. You finally understand that not everything broken needs fixing, and not every bond is meant to be mended. You release with love because you're no longer attached through fear. You no longer need to be needed, and you don't confuse attachment for intimacy. What stays in your life now aligns with your peace, not your patterns. The emotional chaos that once felt like love now feels like noise. You stop mistaking anxiety for excitement, silence for rejection, or inconsistency for passion. Instead, you recognize calm as clarity. You don't crave the highs and lows anymore. You seek something steady, something sacred. You're no longer attracted to dysfunction because you've healed the parts of you that once called it home. Your inner world no longer mirrors survival. It mirrors self-respect. You begin to trust yourself deeply. The opinions that used to shake your sense of worth no longer have weight. You're not looking for validation in a room. You bring your own sense of value wherever you go. You're not shrinking to fit, and you're not inflating to impress. You just are, grounded, whole, steady. You understand now that letting go isn't loss, it's liberation. You don't need closure from others because you've learned to give it to yourself. You don't need someone to apologize in order to forgive. Forgiveness becomes something you do for your own soul's freedom, not as a favor to the past. You move on, not to forget, but to remember who you are when you're not carrying what wasn't yours to begin with. This shift is not loud. It's not dramatic. It's not performative. It's subtle, internal, and irreversible. It's the kind of transformation that doesn't seek to be seen, but is felt in everything you do. Your energy softens. Your boundaries strengthen. Your presence becomes both gentle and powerful. You no longer need to convince anyone of your worth because you live it effortlessly. And that's how you know the shadow no longer runs your life. You're not just surviving anymore. You're creating. You're choosing. You're aligned. Declare your emotional freedom by commenting below, "I am whole within." Let this truth settle in your heart and guide your relationships from this moment on. And if this message resonates with you, share it with someone who's ready to rise into their own strength, because healing is contagious when shared. 4. You align your energy with truth and authenticity. You align your energy with truth and authenticity. You no longer act from a place of fear, anxiety, or urgency. Instead, your actions are rooted in inner clarity. You are no longer rushing to fix things, chasing outcomes, or trying to control how others perceive you. There is a stillness to your choices now, a deliberate calmness that comes from within. This shift is not loud, but it is powerful. When your energy is no longer shaped by fear or wounds, your entire vibration begins to change. You act from presence, not pressure, from self-respect, not desperation. The decisions you make are no longer about seeking safety in others, but about honoring your alignment. You stop trying to prove yourself. You no longer over-explain, overshare, or overcommit. You begin to conserve your energy for what truly matters, and that shift becomes magnetic. People may not understand it, but they feel it. Some will draw closer, others will fall away. You don't force either. You've outgrown the need to hold on to what doesn't resonate. As you align with your authentic frequency, the world begins to mirror that clarity back to you. You attract new relationships, not because you're searching, but because you're whole. You connect from a place of truth, not need. You give love from overflow, not from emptiness. And you release gently, without bitterness, when something no longer serves your peace. You realize that letting go is not loss, it's alignment. You no longer vibrate with chaos or confusion. Instead, your energy filters out anything misaligned. You stop participating in cycles that drain you. You stop tolerating dynamics that diminish your light. You become more discerning, not as a defense mechanism, but as an act of self-love. You choose your peace over your past. Your intuition becomes stronger. Your emotions become teachers, not enemies. You allow them to pass through without letting them take over. You feel without falling. You witness your reactions without becoming them. This is the energy of someone who has integrated their shadow. You're no longer ruled by the unconscious parts of you that once demanded attention, validation, or revenge. You no longer need to be seen to feel worthy. You no longer need to be understood to feel safe. You simply are. And that presence speaks louder than any performance ever could. Your authenticity becomes your protection. Your peace becomes your power. When your energy aligns with truth, life begins to meet you in unexpected ways. The right people arrive. The wrong ones fade. The noise quiets. The path clears. And what remains is you present, whole, and no longer trying to become, because you remember that you already are. If you're ready to align with your truth and let your energy flow from authenticity, not fear, go ahead and like this video, subscribe for more spiritual insights, and comment below. I choose presence over pressure. Let's rise in frequency together. 5. You stop chasing, proving, or controlling. You no longer chase, prove, or control because you no longer feel the need to. The urgency to convince others, to meet expectations, or to achieve just for validation dissolves. What replaces it is something far more powerful: softness, trust, and stillness. You are no longer moving from lack, fear, or past wounds. You are flowing from alignment. This shift is not about becoming passive. It's about becoming wise. You no longer seek to control people or outcomes. You understand that clarity comes not from force, but from presence. You trust life, not because it always makes sense, but because you've made peace with not needing to control every detail. You stop performing roles that drain you. You no longer shapeshift to gain approval. Instead, you allow yourself to just be. There's nothing left to prove because your energy no longer revolves around winning love or earning worth. You speak less to defend yourself and more to express truth. You show up not to please, but to connect. You walk away from spaces that require you to shrink. You choose relationships that match your healing, not your history. You rest, not because you're lazy, but because you finally know you're enough. And in this new space of being, life responds to you differently. You attract opportunities and people that resonate with your healed frequency. Your peace becomes magnetic. Your silence speaks. You're no longer pulled into chaos because you no longer carry chaos. You let go without resentment. You stay without attachment. Your presence becomes your protection. The maturity that is unfolded within you cannot be faked. It is earned through depth, reflection, and inner work. You've confronted your shadow, and instead of running from it, you've invited it to the table. You've made peace with your past and no longer let it narrate your future. The voice that once screamed, "You're not enough," has grown quiet, replaced by a knowing that you are held, you are guided, and you are whole. You don't need to announce this change. It reveals itself in how you walk into a room, how you handle silence, how you no longer over-explain. You've stopped fighting for space because you've become the space. You've stopped needing to be seen because you see yourself. You've stopped needing to be loved because you are love in motion. This is what happens when the shadow no longer dominates your energy. Your life no longer runs on urgency, fear, or ego. It flows with intention, truth, and grace. You have nothing to hide, nothing to prove, nothing to force. Just clarity, just presence, just peace. If this message resonated with your spirit, comment below. I choose trust over control. I flow with grace and clarity. Let this be your gentle declaration of inner maturity, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more soul-deep wisdom. 6. You embrace your shadow and integrate your darkness. You no longer hide from the parts of yourself that once made you uncomfortable. Instead, you lean in. You sit with your fears, your guilt, your anger, not to indulge them, but to understand them. You know now that ignoring your darkness only gives it more power. Real growth begins the moment you stop pretending and start observing. That's when the shadow begins to dissolve, not because it disappears, but because it becomes integrated. No longer your enemy, it becomes your teacher. As Carl Jung once said, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. You've made peace with your inner storms. The part of you that used to react with rage or collapse with shame now pauses, reflects, chooses. You don't deny your pain anymore, you decode it. Every trigger becomes a map to an old wound. Every emotion becomes a compass pointing toward healing. Instead of avoiding discomfort, you explore it. And in that exploration, you find resilience. Your energy begins to shift. People notice. They may not understand why, but they feel the difference. You speak with calm, not urgency. You no longer need validation to feel worthy. Your presence becomes still, like a deep river, quiet, but powerful. Relationships change. The need to prove, to control, to manipulate gone. Now, you connect from a place of balance, not brokenness. You no longer expect others to carry your emotional weight. You carry your own with grace. The conversations you have with yourself become more honest. You stop gaslighting your own intuition. You trust your inner knowing more than the noise of the world. And when conflict arises, you no longer feel the need to win. You want to understand. That shift alone is proof that the shadow no longer owns your reactions. You're not trying to look strong anymore. You are strong because you've embraced what once weakened you. You begin to forgive, not because others deserve it, but because you do. Holding on to resentment costs too much energy, and you've learned to guard your peace like it's sacred because it is. You walk away without bitterness. You say no without guilt. You choose solitude without fear. This is not indifference. This is sovereignty. You are no longer afraid to sit alone with yourself because you've made that space safe and sacred. The transformation is subtle. It doesn't shout. It whispers in how you breathe through discomfort, how you stay grounded during chaos, how you no longer chase what doesn't align. You realize healing is not a straight path, but a spiral. Sometimes the same lesson returns, but now you greet it with new awareness. You don't collapse into old patterns. You rise gently because you've built inner strength where there was once only reaction. This is what it means to reclaim your energy from the shadow. It's not about erasing the dark. It's about shining so much light within that the darkness has nowhere to hide. To affirm your commitment to inner wholeness, declare it now. Comment below, "I embrace my shadow," to honor your journey of integration and inspire others to face their truth with courage. 7. You live from your center and become a source of quiet healing. You begin living from your center, a calm, grounded space within that no longer needs to chase, prove, or perform. Something subtle shifts in the way you move through the world. You no longer wear masks or armor. You are simply you, unfiltered, unapologetic, and whole. Your presence stops being noise and starts becoming nourishment. There's no more striving to be seen or heard because the energy you now carry speaks before you ever say a word. You radiate clarity, peace, and depth, and that becomes your quiet medicine for the world around you. Your soul has matured. You're not trying to change others. You've changed your own frequency, and that changes everything. You don't lead by force anymore. You lead by example, through how you breathe, how you listen, how you exist. Carl Jung once said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." And you've done that work. You've sat with your shadow, faced the hidden parts of yourself, and integrated them not to fix what was broken, but to reclaim what was buried. That integration allows you to stop reacting from pain and begin responding from presence. You stop leaking energy. You stop bleeding past wounds into present relationships. You no longer feel the need to prove your worth or argue your truth. You're not driven by fear or scarcity. You're guided by stillness and truth. There's a quiet strength in you now, one that doesn't push, but pulls. One that doesn't chase, but attracts. That's the power of alignment. When your energy is clean and whole, you don't need to manifest through force. You manifest through resonance. The law of attraction responds not to your words, but to the vibration behind them. When you are whole inside, your outer world begins to match. This is spiritual awakening in its most grounded form. It's not loud. It doesn't need validation. It's a soft, steady remembrance of who you've always been beneath the noise. You walk into a room, and without needing attention, you shift the atmosphere. You don't need to defend yourself or justify your peace. You simply live in it. And in doing so, you invite others to return to themselves. The energy you carry gives people permission to exhale, to drop their masks, to feel safe. Healing, then, becomes less about effort and more about embodiment. It's not something you try to do, it's something you've become. Your relationships evolve. You set boundaries without bitterness. You let go without drama. You love without losing yourself. You've stopped performing because there's nothing left to prove. The shadow no longer dominates your energy. It's there, but it no longer rules. It informs, but it doesn't control. You live from your center. And in that stillness, in that quiet truth, you become the presence that heals without trying. If this message resonates with your soul, leave a like, subscribe to our channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss content that helps you embody peace and presence. Comment below. I am a source of quiet healing, to affirm your journey and inspire others to live from their center. As you continue walking this path of awareness, remember, the absence of chaos is not emptiness, it is mastery. When your shadow no longer controls you, peace is no longer fleeting. It becomes your foundation. If this message resonated with you, take a moment to reflect on how far you've come in reclaiming your power and choosing healing over reaction. Don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who may need this wisdom today, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom. Be sure to turn on the notification bell so you never miss our upcoming videos filled with deeper insights into your spiritual journey. Until next time, stay conscious, stay grounded, and keep evolving.